Hello and welcome to episode. Oh wow, that's a hot mic. Hold up. Let me back that off. Hello and welcome to episode 300 of The Joy of Coding. I can't believe we did it. High five. Psh, right in the face. High five. I hope you're doing well. We did it. It's episode 300. Let's bring up some fireworks. Like, why delay? I'm bringing up the fireworks. Hold on. Here's my screen. I don't know if these are coming in at full 60 frames per second, but there you go. We did it at 300. I should probably have had like the 300 episodes like written here or something. We did it. Congratulations, everyone. If you've been with me for a while or if you just joined, to watch the stream, I appreciate you being here. We did it. And let's do another 300. Let's do another 600. Let's see if we can crack 1,000. We'll see how it goes. So welcome to The Joy of Coding. My name is Mike Conley. So good to see you. We're going to be, normally we'd be hacking on Firefox stuff, but today, because it's episode 300, I thought we'd do something a little bit special. I'll get to that in just a second, but I'm going to go through the general preamble before we continue. So, yeah, it's September 14th, 2022. A reminder, no plan survives breakfast. I think I know what I want to do today. I kind of have a plan, but it might go sideways because I haven't rehearsed any of this. I haven't really planned out much of it. And I'm already starting to hit challenges. I'll get to that in a second. But, who knows what'll happen. But you get to join along for the ride. You watch me get into trouble, get out of trouble, deal with things, struggle. That's the name of the game. The second thing is that the agenda that we're looking at is available to you. If you're watching this on Air Mozilla, check out the video details. If you're watching this on YouTube, check out the video description. Same goes for Diode.zone. Check out the video description. And for the gang, the Twitch gang, let me grab the agenda link for you for episode 300 and drop it into the Twitch chat. There you go, Twitch gang. And you can follow along. This will update as I edit it. So I'm going to dive right into it. So what I wanted to do was kind of go back to my roots. You may or may not know this. I wouldn't expect you to because, you're not... I don't expect you to have a good sense of my history. But if you dig through my blog, if you know anything about my history at Mozilla, you know that I started working on Thunderbird. That was like my first project at Mozilla, being a contractor, actually, as I started working as a contractor working on Thunderbird. And if you're not familiar with Thunderbird, Thunderbird is an email client built on top of the same application framework, the same platform that Firefox is built on. And so, it uses a lot of the same mechanisms, a lot of JavaScript, a lot of Zool and CSS and some mixtures of HTML and all that sort of thing that we normally deal with, along with C++ and maybe some Rust here and there, but it's all using the same platform. And so Thunderbird is kind of near and dear to my heart, and I want to show off some of the cool stuff that's been going on there lately because... for a long time, I think there was this misconception that Thunderbird as a project was just kind of like over, that no one was working on it when, maybe there wasn't a lot of noise being made about it necessarily, but development was happening. And there are people who are paid employees of, I think it's called MZLA Technologies, which is like a subsidiary of the foundation. I think that's how it's arranged. And they are the paid staff that work on Thunderbird. So as I understand it, correct me if I'm wrong here, if anyone here who's watching this who knows what's going on in Thunderbird land, but like MZLA Technologies, that is their job is to work on Thunderbird. And they work together with the Mozilla Corporation with the infrastructure. They'll use some of the same infrastructure, but, it's its own company. Alakad, who I think that name's familiar, in Twitch writes, "Heads up, the Zool splitters are currently broken in Thunderbird due to some Mozilla Central changes." I remember those days. A fix is in Autoland. Product Design Manager for the Thunderbird here, and you're absolutely correct. Hey, Product Design Manager, great work. We have someone from the Thunderbird team in our midst in the Twitch chat. You should, if you're in the Twitch chat or in the Matrix channel, Alec Cad is the Product Design Manager. And I want to kind of show off some of the neat stuff that Thunderbird's been doing, because they've recently, I think this is the website. They've recently really modernized the look of it. For a long time, Thunderbird kind of looked like the same. I mean, right around I think whenever Firefox did the Quantum release with the square tabs, Thunderbird did a similar square tab thing, and so there was like a common sort of design language between the two applications. You can kind of see it here. But there have been some more recent changes to Thunderbird that I think are not really reflected in this screenshot. Let me see if I can find you what I'm talking about. Thunderbird like 102. Let's see if we can find some screenshots. So there was a blog post from the Thunderbird gang for version 102, and like they talked about all the cool stuff. They like revamped the look and feel of like icons and themes. The address book, this is near and dear to my heart. So, for the longest time, the address book inside of Thunderbird was this separate window that, hadn't changed since I think like the days when it was part of the Mozilla suite and got spun out from Netscape. Like it was really crufty, and it did its job, but it was limited in what it could do, and it was powered by the Mork database engine, which no one really understood, and that meant that even though Mork was very fast, it was an in-memory database, basically a key value store. It was very difficult to hack on and to do more complicated queries on. And as I understand it, they have completely revamped the address book. I'm pretty sure I think it's using SQLite as its database backend. I think they've basically rewritten the entire UI. It exists in the content area now. You can see some screenshots here. They've got the inline photos. It's some things about it might seem familiar. The idea that you can have multiple address books, maybe there are mailing lists, but in other ways it is completely different and modern, which is really nice. Especially, I'm hoping, I haven't actually had a chance to look at it yet, but the fact that you can add multiple things is really powerful. Because before, I think with the Mork database backend, you could have like a fixed set of like email addresses associated with a contact, or a fixed set of websites, and the whole like card interface was really kind of awkward and clumsy. And I think they've really modernized it and done a great job. And as I understand it, it understands the CardDAV format, which is, if you're not familiar with it, is sort of or is it vCard? vCard? Maybe that's... CardDAV, I guess, is like the sort of the communications, the client-server communication for passing vCards around. vCards are basically, it's like, you can think of it as what eventually became a standard way of communicating contacts or representing contacts as a data structure. And that is useful because lots of applications that have things like contacts can export and import contacts. And using CardDAV, you can, in theory, have your contacts hosted on something like, some server infrastructure. For myself, maybe it'd be something like Nextcloud, or maybe your company's LDAP directory, who knows? And then using CardDAV, you can communicate and synchronize and get that information represented in the client, which is really, really nice. Because there's nothing worse than having like all of your contacts kind of spread out all over the place and trying to like copy things over. That's kind of clumsy. So that's very exciting. So the address book, very near and dear to my heart, and I'm hoping we can talk a little bit about that today. I might actually try and fix a bug in the address book. I went and found one that I thought might be tasty to look at. And then there's some other stuff, like they've done some revamping of the toolbar. They've got this like nice sidebar thing, to switch between the different sort of like, what do you call it? Like the functions of Thunderbird. Like Thunderbird is not just an email client. It also, along with the address book, it has chat capabilities, calendaring capabilities. It's kind of like a productivity suite. Like it's a good tool for just like if you need to manage complicated data involving people and like communicating with people, you should consider it. Lots of other revamps like the modernized wizard, setup wizard, powerful things like more if you're more interested in like the guts of what's going on in your what's being displayed for your email, like in an email message, you can start to customize that. You can change the header. And Matrix Chat, which we are using right now as the live hacking channel. So yeah, Thunderbird has like a chat capability. It can connect using, I think, something called libpurple. It will connect to various chat backends. I think it can do IRC. It can do like Jabber and XMPP and all these things. Well, they added support for Matrix, which is great. That's very exciting. And so I'm very pleased. I'm happy that Thunderbird continues to do its thing. And now we look at the challenges that I'm dealing with, which is building. So I tried earlier today to get a build of Thunderbird going, and a binary build. So if you're not familiar with what I mean by a binary build, there are two different modes of building traditionally something like Firefox or Thunderbird. And there's like a binary build, and that can have its own like you can have like an optimized binary build, or you can have a binary build. You can configure your binary builds in a couple different ways. And there's what's called an artifact build, where you like download these pre-built binary artifacts, and then we package up the local like scripting, like JavaScript, CSS, markup, that sort of thing. So it's almost like you download the things that are most expensive to compile, and then you just package up and zip up the stuff that you have locally for scripting, and then you run one on top of the other. And that's generally a lot faster and useful if you are not actually changing any of the native code. And I was trying to do a binary build earlier today, and I found out that like there's something like seriously wrong with my machine or my version of Mac OS or Xcode or something, where every time I try and do a build, it like wants to go and re-download the Xcode command line tools. And I don't think I'm alone. I think it's possible that like there was some kind of bump in terms of the supported SDK versions and yada yada yada. I'm not entirely certain. And so just before this episode, because I started to try and do the build about an hour and a half ago, and I kept hitting these issues. And each time it tries to install the command line tools, it takes like 10 minutes. So it's like really awkward. So I decided to switch to trying to do an artifact build, and it just failed, and now let's figure out why. Well, one of the things I'm noticing looking at this error, I'm gonna, hang on, that's the wrong window. Why did it move? Apologies. I accidentally moved that window. Come on, zoom in. If you're new to the stream, this is what it's like watching me struggle. This is the interesting part here. I think I may have something left over in my Moz config about using Ccache, which when you're doing an artifact build doesn't make any sense. You know, you don't need to use Ccache. Ccache is a tool for caching local binary artifacts, so you don't have to keep rebuilding them again and again and again. And when you're doing an artifact build, you don't need Ccache. So maybe this will be better. So let's try that. Different Moz config setting. Let's see what it says. Now, when I did this last time, it brought up the whole, like, this dialogue. This is what's been running in the background for, like, a while now. It's slowed down recently because of probably the streaming and the cost of, like, in terms of processor time to do, or disk time to do the streaming. I don't know. But it's saying, like, 15 minutes to go to download stuff, and it's downloading the command line developer tools. What I'm hoping is that none of this stuff is actually required to do an artifact build. That's what I'm hoping. So I'm going to just kind of like clumsily bluster forward and see if we can get an artifact build going without going too deep into trying to fix the whole binary build situation, because I think that'd be a little more boring. I'm more interested in trying to like fix a Thunderbird bug. And while we wait for my machine to sort of like get its act together, maybe I should actually just stop this and see what happens. Let's just see. Let's see if I like. All right, maybe this installer will get the message in just a second. In the meantime, as my machine just tries to like sort itself out, and hopefully I'm not dropping frames like crazy, that's good. Let's talk a little bit about the bug I found. So what I did to find this bug is I went into Bugzilla, and if you've never been in Bugzilla before, you know, we've got all these different products. You've probably seen me like kind of navigate Bugzilla. If you've watched the previous stream, you've seen me navigate around. But normally I don't look at Thunderbird bugs. And today what I did was I went to the Thunderbird project, and I chose address book. And I started to dig through this stuff. Now I should probably immediately, like, I realize now that I probably shouldn't be showing you my my Bugzilla queries, because if there were security issues in this list, because I have like elevated privileges, we'd be able to see the summaries of the security issues. Thankfully, I don't see any. That's good. If there was like a security issue, we'd be able to see the summary, and that'd be bad. I wouldn't want you to see that, or I definitely wouldn't want to broadcast that. So thankfully, none of those were shown. But of this list, I organized it by priority, and I looked for something unclaimed that looked relatively useful. And here's one that got opened about 8 months ago by Thomas D, aka Thomas 8. Apparently, in version 98, the address book, there was a regression in behavior where Control N used to be used to create a contact from anywhere within the address book. So you could be in any state, and oh look, we're making progress. That's good. You could be in any state of the address book, and if you hit Control N or presumably Command N on Mac OS, you'd be able to create a new contact. That appears to not work anymore, and then afterwards, someone's like, hey, it's the same person, it's a reporter, and I think I may have met this person. This name sounds familiar. And they're like, hey, can we fix this soon? Is it hard? They're creating contacts like every day for their work in a growing enterprise. Oh, they work for MZLA Thunderbird, so they're an employee of the people working on the Thunderbird client. And not having this shortcut really slows me down, forces me into unnecessary mouse moves and clicks, which fosters RSS, repetitive strain injury syndrome. For keyboard-only users with screen readers, yeah, this is another good point. You want to be able to, like, not everyone can use a mouse, gang, and so you want to make sure that your application is keyboard-friendly. And now it takes as many as 5 key presses going through nested menus for a trivial everyday action like creating a new contact. The only way is going through File menu, not exactly intuitive. And then they describe how you do it. You go like Alt-F, N, C, C, or File, New, and then you skip some things, like all that sort of stuff. So we're going to see if we can get Control-N to work again, if I can get this build going. And my machine is struggling. I don't know what is happening here. I'm really worried about dropping frames. Thankfully, I'm not. I'm seeing SmurfD mention about downloading the command line tools from Apple. Yes, I could do that. It seems like it's definitely downloading things and installing things. It's just taking its sweet time. And that's like draining a lot of system resources. While we do all this, we can go to Sublime, where I've got my sort of working environment set up. And the way that the Thunderbird source code is organized is similar to Firefox's source code. It's actually, they've inverted the directory relationship that I was used to. So back in the day when I was first working on Thunderbird, you would clone the ComCentral repository, which contained the Thunderbird and SeaMonkey source code, and then you'd run a command which would clone the Mozilla Central source code into that same directory. And so you'd run various commands from within the top level directory, and somehow through various arcane build configurations, it all worked. Since that time, it seems that there's been an inversion, and what happens now is the instructions have you download the Firefox source code, which I already had, Mozilla Central, and then you clone the com directory, the ComCentral repository rather, into the Mozilla Central source code. So that's this is it. This is the Thunderbird, like all of the Thunderbird and SeaMonkey and all that stuff is in here in this directory called com. And so this is where we're going to find things like address book. We're going to find all of the Thunderbird stuff is in here. And as I recall, there were, under mail components, there was a thing called address book. This is presumably where a lot of the markup for the address book is. That's good. Look, vCard editing tools. Very excited to read some of this stuff. But as I recall, there was also some address book stuff inside of Mail News. Some of this may or may not still be relevant. It's possible that, it looks like there is some relevant stuff. Like, I have a feeling this is what powers the back end of the address book. And I'm just kind of leafing through it. There's some of the old stuff is still in here. I'm very curious about how it works. We might have to dig into it a little bit. I don't know. I'm very happy to see that there are still tests. I actually saw some browser tests, which is really interesting because back in the day when I was working on Thunderbird, we didn't have Moki tests. I think they used Chrome Moki tests, but we used something called Mosmill to do like UI tests, like integration tests of Thunderbird, and it was fine, but it was not amazing. And so it looks like they've transitioned to using browser Moki tests, which is a good idea because that's what Thunderbird uses. Or sorry, that's what Firefox uses, and so there's a lot of like built-in support for it, as opposed to like using something kind of bespoke. Okay, we've got ourselves a failure here to build, so we might be sunk. AutoConf requires GNU M4 1.1 or later. This is even if I'm doing an artifact build? Come on, gang. So maybe I do need this stuff. Well, we might be sunk. we might be sunk. Oh, Smurfy says brew install M4. Yeah, we could try that. Let's see what happens. Brew install M4. I mean, it's possible that that's going to fight against what's happening over here in command line tools land. But let's find out. And, you know, I don't know what exactly is so heavy about this installation, but it is really bogging down my machine. Like the frame rate of my video, like my camera monitor, it's super choppy. Thankfully, it seems pretty smooth in the in OBS, so hopefully it's not too brutal on your end, and hopefully this goes okay. Let's see what happens when I run brew. And in the meantime, let's take a look at the address book source code and see if we can sort of make sense of what it's doing. So this is brand new code, I presume. Like I am, or at the very least, it's code I have not seen in a long time or ever. So I don't even know where to start. But I'm going to make some guesses. And so looking at the source code here, I see something called about address book. And what that makes me think is that the Thunderbird team may have created an internal about page as the address to go to load the address book. And it's called probably about address book. And we might actually be able to verify that if we go to SearchFox and we can search the Com Central source code from here. And we can look for about address book. Oh, and they're using Fluent too. See, all this is great stuff. And it looks like, yes, there is an about redirector, and they have what looks like an about address book pointing to there. So that seems like it's a likely candidate for an entry point for this whole thing. So let's start here. And there's also like an about address book.js. So this is probably where like your main entry point for scripting is. But in terms of markup, I think we're in the right spot. So they're still temporarily using DTD strings here. I get it. So is Firefox, but hopefully soon the DTDs will be gone. Load a bunch of style sheets, load some Fluent. Okay, they bring in some script. AB view, tree view, JS tree view. I remember that. Okay, various components get brought in. They put a Zool toolbox inside there. Okay, some toolbar buttons. So we've got a mixture of Zool and HTML inside of this document. And then it looks like they start describing the various columns here. And they're using HTML templates. So that's the structure for presumably some kind of address book. This is maybe some kind of template for presumably some kind of item within an address book or maybe a mailing list. That's my guess. This looks really interesting. This is the cards pane. So this is probably where your editing is going to be. Or no, it looks like this is where you can like search within your cards. Maybe your list of things is within the cards pane. There's your list right here. It's empty. I presume that gets populated with script. There's a placeholder here. And then details. This is where you're going to find information probably about the card that you've selected, or maybe the mailing list you've selected. Who knows? And you can look at the details of it. So there's modern HTML in here. That's nice. That's really great. It's mostly HTML as opposed to Zool. That's also really great. Forms. Looks like there's some inline include here. Okay, there's a little bit of Zool for things like labels and menu lists. They describe a dialogue. So this is actually modern HTML as well. The dialogue support. We have that now. Okay, now we start getting into some in-content dialogues with a stack. And now we describe some pop-ups. Okay. I think I've got a sense of the structure, the overall markup structure of this thing. Let's take a look at some of the script. But before we do that, let's see if installing M4 worked. Wow, look at all this. What is going on? What happened? M4 1.1. I've already got 1.4.19. Locate Clang. All of this looks really dire. Okay. And what's going on over here? This thing is still running. Maybe I just need to wait for it to complete. Well, I guess 14 minutes to go. Let's keep looking at the source code. I think that's a useful thing to do while we wait. I apologize, but the good news is that this is very realistic. I'd be reading this stuff anyways, even if I had a build. It's a good idea to understand the ecosystem of the code base you're about to modify before you actually modify it. So let's look inside this about address book, which is, I'm gonna guess again, this is using instinct here is our main entry point, just based on naming convention. And so we bring in a bunch of JSMs. And they're using some subdialog stuff that they've brought in from Toolkit. And some old properties, strings. Okay, here we go. When we load the window, this looks like this is maybe main. This might be your main script in main, if we want to think of it that way, for the address book document. So we hook up some event listeners. We hook up a lot of event listeners, and then we get at the list of address books. We init a bunch of stuff. We get some prefs. Once the address book has gone away, this should be changed to use UIDs instead of URIs. It's just easier to keep as is for now. What is this doing? So we get a string for the startup URI. It looks like maybe we remembered some old, pre-migration away from Mork address book. Maybe the team did some upfront work, remembered the old selected address book, and then they're using this as like a way of keeping that selection, because that is what it looks like is happening here. Is like we're grabbing this pref, then we're doing this stuff, but it looks like we keep it around, and there's some talk about getting rid of it eventually. Okay. And then we search. Okay, so by default we focus the search input. That makes sense. This is a little bit like preferences in Firefox. And then we dispatch an event saying, hey, we're ready. And then here's cleanup. So this is really interesting, because if we're going to fix this bug, there's a keypress event handler that's being defined in here that potentially we could use. Although normally, let's go back to addressbook.xhtml for a second. Normally, in old school Zool, the way we'd set up event handlers for keys is we would actually use the key element this key Zool element. I don't see that happening here, and maybe that's fine. Maybe that's a good thing. I mean, we don't need more Zool. If possible, we should move away from it. So this key press event handler might be our best bet. What about what else we have? It's set on the... There are a bunch of key press event handlers here, but this one is set... It's a bubbling event handler, and if the event key is not F6 or doesn't include the alt key or doesn't include the control key or the meta key, then we bail out. Otherwise, we're going to figure out what our target might be. We're going to see where we're focused. Interesting. Okay. This is an interesting way of doing this. This is perfectly valid, but they're using the CSS focus within sort of CSS matching rule to figure out what element within this target list the user focuses within. There's a focus manager that could have also potentially been used, but this is fine. And then we look to see if the shift key is pressed, and if so, we're going to do some stuff. Otherwise, it's just going to focus a thing. And I wonder if this might be a good place for... they're slowly removing keys and commands and moving away from it. Good man. All right, that's good to hear. It's good to hear. 8 minutes remaining. 8 minutes remaining. I'm trying not to kill time, but I'm also trying to kill time. So in theory, this might be a good place for some keyboard shortcuts. Let's keep looking around, because maybe there's another way to hook them up. So called on... Oh, I love the documentation here too. That's nice. I'm really happy that the Thunderbird team is taking documentation seriously, inline documentation seriously. That's good. Called on load from to address book to create, display, or edit a card. Great. Not relevant. Well, we're eventually going to probably call this or something like it in order to like hook up our control N keyboard to something like this. How does it do it? Presumably there's something that's like create contact somewhere. Edit new contact might be the one. If action is create. So something calls external action. I presume that's called by some outside consumer. Address book tab. I wonder what address book tab is, and then mail core. Do command. If we see that we are printing inside of the address book tab. So this is the thing that manages not the content, but I remember this stuff. This is within the Thunderbird window. This manages the actual tab item that shows the document. And it looks like if we see on the window a command to do command print, then we'll call into the content and say, okay, print. Okay. Now, I wonder... this is another potential place. I know Alacad was saying that they want to move away. They want to move away from commands and keys. But this is another potential place where you could put a handler. And then over here in mail core, this is just a helper function to open the address book. And if I recall correctly, this might be because the command line, you're able to open the address book via the command line. There might be some other entry points as well. Okay. Okay. Let's keep looking. Let's keep digging. So this is interesting. This might be worth looking at. Edit new contact. It's interesting because it looks like you can supply a string to edit new contact with like maybe some card display or edit this card. You're passing a card. What's the... It defaults to nothing, undefined. So presumably that's an optional I guess that's what the question mark means. So maybe if we call just details pane edit new contact with nothing, we'll get the editor. So that's a possibility. And details pane is, I guess, a global on the window. Okay. Here's a way we can create a book. Here you can see, there are different kinds of address books. JS directory type, CardDAV directory type. That's so interesting. So we can create different kinds of address books. It looks like they still support LDAP. That's good. CardDAV, I guess that's like a remote. If you've got your contacts on some remote service on like a Nextcloud or OwnCloud or something, or something out on the infrastructure. What is it? What was I familiar with? There was like a Radical. Was a one I think written in Python. You could host your contacts. And it looks like they have different editors or like UIs for configuring those things, which makes a lot of sense because each of these things is different. Excuse me. This might be exactly what we want. So what does it do? It figures out which address book we're looking at, and if it finds one, it will determine whether or not the book. Oh, I guess that's right. A book can be read-only, so it might throw an exception if the address book is read-only. So that's the thing we have to keep in mind. Failing that, it will call edit new contact. Okay. This actually seems like a relatively... this is my top contender for what to call if the user hits Control-N, is create contact. Create list. That's, I guess, Thunderbird still supports mailing lists. 2 minutes. And an NSI-AB card is an XPCOM representation of a contact. I'm curious to know how they're like navigating that. The difference between an NSI-AB card and a V card, maybe one wraps the other or vice versa. I don't know. We'll see. Or maybe one implements the other. Import an address book from a file. That's address book count. Wow, there's a lot in here. I don't want to read through all of this. And then we've got these like JS implementations of... Okay, we've got some custom elements here. And this is for the list of address books. Very interesting. I don't think this is relevant for the bug that we're working on, but it's nice to know that it looks like they moved away from Zuul Tree, which I think powered the old one. Search input is like yeah, that's right. Port, an HTML port of Moz search text box. Very good. Very good. We should like consider maybe at some point dropping this into Toolkit. And having it be just like search input. A list of cards. Okay. So let's see where we're at here. Is this thing installed yet? 8 seconds remaining. I'm gonna level with you. Tree list boxes are JS rebuild of the Zuul tree. Thank goodness. Thank you so much for getting off of Zuul tree. I know that Thunderbird is deeply, or like last I worked on it, Thunderbird was deeply, deeply coupled with Zuul tree. Zuul tree is very powerful, but it also that's the thing that allows you to like have a humongous list of mail, tens of thousands of things listed, and it be performant, and it can like expand and contract and like have different fields and be sortable, and like you can change the columns around. It's like a really, really powerful component, but is also like deeply, deeply coupled with our graphics layer. And I know that our platform team is eager to eventually deprecate Zuul tree because of you know, just the maintenance cost of it, that there are existing issues with it, and there are better ways these days of going about it. And it looks like the Thunderbird team has done the heroic work of re-implementing what they've needed in JS, which is great. That was always the hope, is that, you know, Thunderbird would get off of Zool Tree, and that we'd get rid of the last few consumers, and then we can excise it from the source code. So very excited about that. 57 seconds remaining. I'm going to prepare you right now, actually, by the way, that because I've gone through this a couple of times, that this could reach 0, and then I try and do a build again, and it comes up again, because that's what's been happening. And if that's the case, we might be sunk. I might have to, or we can make a choice. We could try and like Google around, search around, try and figure out what the heck's going on here. That might be fun. Or we can do the backup plan, which is we can start digging into source code of ScumVM, which was like my backup plan. Although I really want to do this Thunderbird thing if I can. I'm really bummed that the even just an artifact build is requiring all this gunk. Oh, there's another alternative. There's another alternative, gang. The alternative is to not use Mac OS. I've got access to a Linux machine that runs out on the network that we could potentially use here. Let me just think. That might... Okay, I'll tell you what. Let's wait until this counts down. Let's try and do a build. If it works, amazing. If it doesn't, we punt. Okay, the software was installed. Here, we're just going to execute the plan. Let's just execute the plan. Mock build. SmurfD is talking about my Windows machine. I do have a Windows 7 machine. You're right. The problem is that the amount of hard drive I have available on that VM... See, this is it. This thing comes up. It's like Clang requires the command line developer tools. What are you talking about? I've already got the command line tools. Get out of here. So I canceled that stuff. C99 command. I've installed these tools. I've installed them multiple times. This is... Maybe I need to restart? Yeah, but that would kill the stream. It's a catch-22, gang. Try launching Xcode. Yeah, alright. Let's try that. Let's launch Xcode. It's been a while since I've done that. Do I have to, like, agree to the license agreement? That could be. I thought I did that recently. I definitely have agreed to the license agreement. Xcode, please give me... Get... Please. Please, Xcode. Please. Yeah, do it. Have all the rights. Yeah. Let's do it. I don't need... sure, install. You want my password? You got it. You can have everything you want. Just let me build Thunderbird. Even an artifact build. Oh my goodness. Ah! Okay, this one's at least faster, so that's good. Hey, but also we've got stuff going on over here. Autoconf. And it looks like it found M4, so maybe... We were so close, gang. We were so close, gang. Installing the components. All right, let's give it another 5 minutes. No, we can do things in parallel. I'm gonna connect to that remote machine. That Linux machine. We're gonna start from scratch because I haven't even cloned the Thunderbird source code to it. Let me just bring this over here first before it all opens up. I don't know what's in here. It's my personal stuff. Yeah, my service. All right, so I'm gonna close that. Okay. Okay, let me open up a new thingy. All right. Reload. Connect to the internet. All right. And are we connected to this remote server? Are you gonna break my heart too? Is Xcode installed? This is why we watch the stream, right, gang? Watch me flail and try and figure out what's going on. Let me restart VS Code. It doesn't normally take that long. Connecting, opening. There we go. Here we go. Let us open. Sure. Give me terminal. Show me terminal. Let's go. What is happening? Why are you opening this? Close. I don't want you. Okay, so here I am. This is the remote machine. Unfortunately, my name is spelled incorrectly. That is my bad. But let us start by cloning. We're starting right from scratch, gang. Mozilla Central, but we're gonna follow the instructions for building Thunderbird on Linux. Building Thunderbird. We're gonna try and do a speed run of building Thunderbird. Here we go. Building Thunderbird. Linux build prereq. Now the good news is I've already built Firefox recently on this, so we're probably okay. But let's start by cloning. If I remember correctly, I want to clone. Where's the cloning instructions? Building, getting started. You want to clone. All right, so I'm going to create a directory called Thunderbird, and I'm going to clone Mozilla Central to it as source, and then I'm going to cd into it and clone Com Central. Now the good news is that this Linux machine is beefy AF. How are we doing with Xcode? Oh, I think it's running. Now, if I go here and I go like more developer preferences, do I go command line tools, text? How do I general service locations? How do I get command line tools? Maybe just by virtue of having run this, that's enough. Have I done enough? Will the Apple build go? Come on, the Apple. It's just an artifact build. Meanwhile, I'm cloning Mozilla Central over here. Smurfd wants me to check to see if I've got GCC around. Well, let's see what happens when I do this. I'll note that it hasn't brought up whether or not I have Clang yet, which is good. Hey, we may have done it. Whoever suggested to open Xcode, I think it may have been Alicad. You may have saved our bacon. You may have saved the stream, because that may have done it. So I'm not going to celebrate until the build is good to go. So I'm going to keep this thing going over here. But we might be on our way, gang. So let's pretend that this is going to work. What do I want to do? What do I think is going to happen? Well, there was like create card or create new card. Man, new card. New contact, is that what it's called? New contact. Edit new contact. It was around here somewhere where I found that really great function. It was like create contact. That's the one. This is, I think, what I want to call, maybe inside of the key press method here, we can add some kind of condition on whether or not we're hitting the right keyboard button. Now we have to make sure it's localized, of course, so we're going to have to figure out how that's done in here. There's like some Fluent stuff as well as AB results pane. So we're going to want to look at that. So let's pull up some of these strings. AB results pane.dtd. Looks like there are already access keys in here. And then we've got the Fluent stuff like about address book. .ftl. Classic. Yep. This all looks great. Are there any like key? No? Okay. What else you got? Preferences and app menu. I don't think either of these are super relevant. So I wonder where the other keyboard shortcuts are. I think I saw some traffic about this inside of the Matrix. It was like, Scoop-doo, what was it? Someone said something about, we are slowly removing keys and commands, moving away from it. The window key press is only hooked for now for the F6 focus ring. So maybe there aren't any existing keyboard shortcuts in the current address book. Okay, I can work with that. So maybe we're the first. In which case, we might... See, we can do it here. We can do it here with script. If they're trying to move away from Zool keys and commands, I'm really pleased we're getting packages. Then we could do it here. Now we're gonna have to change this rule because right now it looks like if the key is not F6, we're gonna just return early. So we might want to like change this condition. It also looks like if we're like in the editing mode, then we don't do anything. So we're gonna have to rejig some of this logic. But it shouldn't be too bad. We're exporting. We're exporting, gang. I'm so excited. We're done exporting. We're packaging some stuff. Last step. Come on. Woo. We're like an hour in. We've almost got our build. Let's go. All right. I think we did it, everyone. Let's see what happens if I say mock run. Creates a temporary profile. I'm gonna shut down this sort of this camera monitor thing I've got in the background. I worry it's taking too many cycles. Looks like we're loading Thunderbirdy things. I see the egg. It's Thunderbird Daily. I haven't seen you in forever. Look at you. Look at you, Thunderbird. It's so good to see you. It's so good to see you. Hey, and here's the new wizard. Check it out. And the privacy notice. Wow. All right. So let's see if I can not do this part. And let's see if I can just go to the address book. Oh, look how pretty this is. It's so like official and businessy. Like I feel efficient just looking at this. Ooh, this is the address book. All right. Look at all these people. Are these? What is all this? Who are all? I see. I remember this. Okay. I remember. Okay, what we're looking at is a bunch of test contacts back from when I used to work on Thunderbird that are stored within my Mac OS address book. I don't normally use the Mac OS address book. And the only reason I used it was testing like Thunderbird address book things. And so all of these are fake contacts that I created, I think, by just a script. And what happens if I try and open one? It breaks. Okay, personal address book. Yeah, these are all... It doesn't seem to be very happy with them, because I guess there aren't any vCard properties. but it remembers all of the like groups. There's my Sammy Jenkins. But this is broken. Aaron. There you go. Good job, search. This is neat. Let's just horizontal layout. Oh. But there's some kind of problem here with these cards. I wonder if it's because in the background it's like it had to migrate these to V cards, I presume. So I wonder if I restart what'll happen. Let's shut down. Let's restart. What? Now it's asking me for a new address book. Oh, that's to set up one. Oh, I see. Close address book. Yeah, that's broken. Okay, well let's set that aside for a second. Let's one thing at a time. Let's create a new contact. This is presumably the dialogue for creating a contact. I'm going to create a contact. I'm going to name him Mike Conley. Nickname M Conley. Email address mconley@mozilla.com. That's my email address. I can add a website. It's a shameless self-promotion. MikeConley.ca. This is so neat. Notes. It's me. Okay, and then I'm going to add to my personal address book. And that shows up over here. And that becomes editable. I see. That's the way they're doing it. Okay. Now what happens if if you'll excuse me, I'm just going to like see what the different functions are because I'm just fascinated. I haven't seen this in forever. Import new list. You can create a contact list. Okay, this seems familiar. Sammy Jenkins, move to the personal address book. Does that work? Yep. And now this thing opens because presumably it got recreated. Okay. Now let's try Command N. Nothing. Control N. Nothing. Okay. I think we can start working on our bug. Let's open up the developer toolbox. Alcad says it should try restarting. Instead of closing the tab, click cancel and enlarge the window. Okay, let's restart. Instead of closing the tab, click cancel and then enlarge the window. Cancel. Exit setup. And now we're going to enlarge the window. I'm going to go to the address book. Okay, took a little second there to load, but it's a lot of contacts, so I don't begrudge you that. Ah, that's interesting. So whenever you have it expanded like this, it'll... Oh, I see. I see what you got going on there, Thunderbird. I see what you're doing. Okay. Delete. Ooh, danger. Okay, so what we want is to try and hook up our our command line or our keyboard words. Come on, we're a keyboard shortcut. So about addressbook.js, there was a key press event handler. We're gonna add a breakpoint here. Let's see what happens if I hit Command N, whether or not I hit our breakpoint. We should. Here we go. Yes, we hit our breakpoint. So this is a good place to do this. Let's try and reorganize some of this stuff and see what happens. All right, so right now we don't want to just filter out everything except F6. Maybe we want to switch on event.key, case F6. Well, what were we doing? This is all of the F6 stuff. Presumably this is F6. So This is one idea. I don't know. My reviewers might have a better idea. We might want to break this up a little. But we could do that. And then case. Now, we need... it's not enough to do event.key. We need to know whether or not the control key was pressed or the meta key on Mac OS, which is the Windows key. It's like control meta. This is where like the Zool key stuff kind of has some power, but they're moving away from it, so I get that. So what we're going to do is we're going to see whether or not this matches Capilin. I'm just going to hard code that in. Yeah, there's some idea of extracting this into its own function. Absolutely. I think that'd be a good idea. I'm not going to do that right now, but I think that's a good idea. Okay. We're going to have it just say like, hey, you did it. Okay, run. I actually don't know if I need to mock build faster. We're gonna find out. Set up. All right, here we go. I want the console, developer tools. Show me the console. All right, Command N. Okay, so it's not seeing it. Let's put our breakpoint here. Why not? Oh, because we're bailing out here. Event meta key. I am holding the meta key. Oh, West. Right, okay. Okay. So the reason we're bailing out is because I originally thought it was filtering everything that's not that. Instead, it's the other way around. If we got the meta key, then we're bailing out. I think what we want to do instead is maybe this. Again, this could use some cleanup. I'm just trying to get ourselves to success as soon as possible. MVP, that's right. MVP. Okay, so let's pull up the developer tools again. Should probably just use the keyboard shortcut. Okay. Just type in some stuff. Letter N. How about Command N? Huh? Huh? No? You don't like that? You don't like that? Come on, what's going on? Oh, lowercase, because it's not... Hey gang, casing. And this is hard-coded. We're going to want to remove that. Switch to localized string. From Fluent. We're just trying to get to point B, gang. Oh, I opened the address book by itself. And now how about, do you know the keyboard shortcut for developer tools? Command Shift I? Command Shift I. There it is. All right. Now if I hit the letter N, it shows up. How about if I hit Command N? Hey, you did it. Hey, all right. Now let's try our create contact thing. Create, what is it? Create contact? Yeah. Create contact. Let's just see what happens. And Sublime froze. Okay, there we go. And let's run. And if this works, then we can start cleaning it up, maybe rethinking our approach. So Command N. Nope, that's writing a new email. Huh. I forgot that that's going to be a problem. Where if... Okay, so it works if you've got the focus in here, but if you've got the focus outside, say, you know, I don't know, where could it be? Over here? Oh, that works still. But if you've got, like, the focus up here... Oh, okay. What about up here? Okay, okay, maybe we're okay. I don't know why it opened up the composer before. Okay. Well, certainly the keyboard shortcut doesn't work from here, is the thing. And I don't know if that is worth being worried about. If you've got, like, this one selected and I hit Command N, what happens? Go to email. I don't have an email address currently set up, so it's probably not going to be very happy if I try and, like, do stuff there. Command N. Chat, Command N. Oh, look at you. But from here, this does work. Well, we've got kind of an MVP, and I don't know how good it is. Like, we may want to consider the possibility of the user having, like, well, if the user has their focus over here, what do we want? What do we want? Maybe this is okay. All right, well, I'll let my reviewers decide. Let's try and clean this thing up. So let's start with this localized string business. Usually Command N does create a new email. Correct. Let's start by adding a fluent string for this. Now, what is there prior art for a key in no. Search Fox. In Com Central, I'm looking for the word key. Access key, CMON key, no. Like, we have access keys. Like, shortcut, keyboard shortcuts. Here we go. So that's using the old school Zool keys. Which inherits from browser sets. Main key set. Let's just take a quick peek at some of these. Message window, messenger view source. I got a feeling this is like, is this the old stuff? Contacts panel. I'll have to look at that. Messenger compose from the composer. That's the window. That's the Thunderbird composition, email composition window. Okay. key set. Is there anything in here that's address booky? So there's like a keyboard shortcut for accessing the address book. So why I'm looking at this is because we could use this. We don't have to. And it sounds like they're moving away from Zool keys. We've gotten away with something that'll work inside our keypress event handler. We're kind of like establishing a new pattern though if we use Fluent for this. But let's give it a shot. About address, what's the convention for these strings? About address book, and then you kind of describe what it is, what you're doing. It's like name spacing. So how about like, is there a good place for a new about address book? Sort, cards, that's what this section is, cards, books, toolbar. So let's create a new section. Oh, it's photo dialog. How about like keyboard shortcuts, about address book, keyboard shortcut, new contact equals n. Now here's the thing, how do I express this in terms of like, on Mac OS, we've got the command button, like there's the modifiers, that's probably what we want. Alacad says, set key. Ooh, check async fun. Okay. Alacad's hooking me up with some information. Here he comes with the education. Check this out. Scripting for add a key down document. So we. Oh, here we go. Okay. I see what you got going on here. And who calls this? Keyboard shortcuts happens inside of the initialization of the window. Yeah. So this is nice because what we have here is a pre-existing pattern inside of the compose window that we can reuse for the address book. That's good because if you can use the same idioms between these different components, it makes it easier to reason about instead of creating like whole bespoke things for each section. So if we can like crib and reuse this pattern, that's good. That's good. It's going to make it easier for people to check to hack on this stuff. So this was a good start, but I think we should actually revert it. So I'm going to revert all of this. Scoop. We're going to go back to the way we were. It was good proof of concept. Instead, we are going to create a very similar function. It's going to be called the same thing. I'm basically just going to wholesale copy it. There's like this load event listener. We're going to call it from within here. Where's a good place to declare it? Probably as the first function, one of the first functions. Add a key down document event listener for international keyboard shortcuts. Sounds good. And like there is a convention here about trigger attachment picker key, toggle attachment pane key. We're gonna call ours new contact key. And there's a convention in this Fluent stuff where it's like started with about address book, I think. About address book. So let's do that. About address book, new contact key. And call it new contact key. So a lot of this, like, I'm copying it completely, and that immediately makes me think, well, maybe this should be some kind of like utility function that is more generic that can be reused between the two windows, but we can worry about that later. You can check those Fluent strings to see how we handle macOS, Windows, and Linux. Yeah, good idea. Let's check out these. Oops. I see. So depending on DXR, what is that show to key? Non-translatable. Okay. But toggle key includes event key. Shortcuts overlay and shortcuts are what we were trying to do with V115. Okay, makes sense, makes sense. For now, let's keep going with what we've got. Always use the lowercase to compare the key and avoid OS inconsistencies. For Command, Control-Shift-A on Mac, key A versus Windows, Linux, key equals A. Fair enough. Switch event key lowercase. We're going to say if you are the new contact key, then we're going to prevent default, Control, Command, Shift. Not Command Shift. I don't want Shift. Or not Shift key. Or Control/Command plus Shift. I just want Command. So I don't care about Shift for now. What's it saying? If we're on Mac OS, the meta key is what we're going to look at. And we're saying, hey, if we don't have the meta key on Mac OS pressed, or the Shift key, or event.key includes any of these, if event.key is one of these, then return. Okay. I don't want the Shift key necessarily. Don't know what to do about that. Control Command N. Instead of go do command, we're getting rid of Zool command, so we're going to say create new contact, create contact, break. It's only the one. Seems weird to have like a single for a switch case, or for a switch. So we might want to like remove that and just turn this into an if. Don't need this. So we need this. And what were we doing before? Convention is to do what? Is to supply it with a capital. Okay. And now we need something to call this, so we'll do it inside of the load. And after maybe all this stuff inits. Yeah, all our event handlers, we do this stuff, we init. Maybe we'll do it here. Seems fine. We'll see what reviewers think. This is async. Go get the value. Add our event listener. All right, let's see what happens. It's 2:23, gang. I'm almost about to wrap up this episode. It's episode 300 of The Joy of Coding. I hope this was interesting. If you've never seen Thunderbird before, I hope you give it a shot. It has no idea what L10N compose is. I gotta teach it that. Back it up. Back it up. Yep. So, what, do we already have one for about address book? Well, about address book. No. Okay, so we need. I don't know. Let's see if that works. Does it need brand? Nope. So we don't need the brand. And about address book is this. You know, we can probably make this even easier. Just call it L10N. Instead of L10N address book. I don't think that's like meaningful, really. All right, restart. Hey, there we go. That works. Doesn't like adding to the Mac OS address book because it's read only. So it's a boop, 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 boop. Doesn't like it. That's probably okay. All address books. What are you going to do when I do that? Okay, it's going to try and add to the personal address book. Okay. That's maybe okay. Like, we might actually have something that is, in theory, at least reviewable. Let's take a look at what we wrote. Oh, sorry, I'm in the wrong... That's going to be confusing. In the wrong directory. The wrong repository. So, what I should have done right from the very beginning is I should have assigned myself this bug. And... Let's see. So, I'm going to ask... Hey, maybe it's biased because you've been watching the stream, but maybe I'll ask Alicad to review this. But what I'll do actually is I will look at who normally touches this file. That's what I should do. So who normally touches about address book.js? Magnus. Reviewer, look at this. All right, I'm convinced. Let's see what Alika says. And then Alika might do a live stream to review the patch. Provide a keyboard shortcut for creating a new contact in the address book. Oops, shouldn't have put a space there at the end. Let me just truncate that. Wow, Mercurial is a lot faster on such a small repository. So it already truncated the string. That's handy. Let's see if it does the right thing. If I say Moz, hglog, where am I? Here. Okay. Moz fab submit tip single. Let's go. Fwah, fwah, fwah. Okay, here we go. We created a patch. It's now in Alicad's review queue. It still says it's a secure revision. That's because the bot is still like figuring out whether or not this bug is, you know, a security bug or not. It's not. Some of these comments, maybe we should just drop them. I'm reviewing my own patch right now. But at the very least, maybe Alex can, or yeah, AlCAD can give me a sense of whether or not this is the right track that I'm on. And yeah, we can get this landed, maybe, if people are interested in taking it. So there you go. That was the episode 300. We put that in here. If you're curious, you can check the agenda. You can follow along as this thing's reviewed. Maybe, who knows? Maybe it'll get rejected. I'll have to do it again. It's possible. Anything's possible. But now you know how you can go about creating a patch for the address book, because maybe you want to make changes or improvements to the Thunderbird address book, and why wouldn't you? It's a wonderful piece of software. You should totally use it. If you don't use it today, email clients, give them a shot. The search is very powerful. Thank you so much for watching episode 300 of The Joy of Coding. If this was your first time watching, thanks for being here. I don't think I'll be streaming for the next 2 weeks. I'm going to be traveling, so you won't see me next week. You won't see me the week after that, but I should be back sometime early October 5th, I think, is what I wrote down. Yes, for episode 301, where we'll get back to moving that Windows jump list stuff off of the main thread for Firefox. Thank you for 300 episodes. I'm having a blast. It's a lot of fun hacking on stuff and having you hang around in the chat and like sending things in the rate this episode links. Like, it's a lot of fun. So I want to just thank everyone who watches this, whether or not you're watching it live or you're watching the recording. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure. It's an honor. I'm pleased to do it. Let me play some sounds to play us out.
What happened?
You all?
How long have we been on this rock? 5 weeks? 2 days? Help me to recollect.
Oh, yeah. Hi-oh! That's right!
Here we go!
All right, let's call it there. Thank you so much for watching episode 300 of The Joy of Coding. I will see you in a couple of weeks. Take care. Bye-bye.
The joy of coding.
See ya.